This video is brought to you by channel partner 4 years running, Squarespace. Stick around to learn more about them, as well as a special offer they're making available through my channel. At Summer Games Fest in LA, I got the chance to go hands-on with both of the recently announced Sony kids games, those being Astro Bot and LEGO Horizon Adventures. Rather than do a separate video on each of them, I thought I'd just combine it into one, since there's a good chance that if you're interested in one of these, you might also be interested in the other. They are, after all, both targeting kids, they're leveraging Sony IP to create cute spin-off experiences, and they're both out sometime this year. I spent 45 minutes with each of them. One of them I really loved. The other I was like, yeah, fair enough. Okay, I'm sure you can guess which one is which. Astro Bot is incredible, smiling ear to ear during my entire 45 minutes with it. They had to call the security guard to get the controller off me by the end of the session. The LEGO Horizon game, on the other hand, it's fine. It really is. It's just, I guess, a very hard act to follow. Not only in the sense that I played it after having played Astro Bot, but also after having played the most recent LEGO Star Wars game a few years back. That was incredible, and from the looks of things, LEGO Horizon Adventures is a lot less ambitious in terms of its scale and design. Plus, it's also kind of weird that of all the IP they could have chosen to make a LEGO game out of, they chose Horizon, a franchise that I personally love, but I know I'm sort of an outlier in that regard, so the decision to make a LEGO game based on that world and those characters, it's unusual, given that most of the other LEGO spin-offs are typically based on franchises that are grounded in a lot more widespread affection, a point I'll come back to later in the video. For now though, let's talk about Astro Bot, because goddamn man, this absolutely rules. For those unfamiliar, Astro Bot is a bit of a wish list, pipe dream, manic pixie fever game that we never thought we'd actually get. Anyone who bothered to boot up the Astro's Playroom game bundled with their PS5 will know exactly what I'm talking about. It was an experience that ran for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, but in that time it delivered an utterly unforgettable journey through both the past and future of PlayStation. The past being the nod to dozens and dozens of characters and environments from previous Sony games, all of them now realized in adorable Astro Bot form, and the future being the power of the PS5 and the DualSense controller that was our physical connection to it. And for most of us, we experienced that when the promise of the DualSense controller was still shining brightly on the distant horizon. When I first held a DualSense, I said that there were 2 next-gen consoles launching in 2020, but only one next-gen controller, because the DualSense's haptic feedback and adaptive triggers were delivering the first genuine advancement in controller technology since like the Rumble Pack on the N64. Since then, the promise of the DualSense has gone largely unrealized. Sure, first-party Sony games and exclusives have tried to make use of it in what little ways they could. Opening doors in Final Fantasy XVI, for example, would sometimes ask you to pull both triggers, and they'd push back hard when you did so. The little Spider-Bot missions in Spider-Man 2 felt great for how tinkly the bot felt as you moved through the vents, but by and large, Sony doesn't make games where you can get some real benefit out of a controller like this, because you kind of want a game, or games plural, that are a bit more silly and playful and novel. That is why, to this day, Astro Bot's Playroom is still the best showcase for the power of the DualSense controller, or at least it was until I played this new Astro Bot game. This is a game that is very centered on Sony's hardware. You literally travel the galaxy in a PS5 controller, flying around a star map to choose your destination. When you arrive, the very first thing that plays is a landing sequence where you're flying towards a landing spot and you need to dodge obstacles and collect pickups along the way. You're doing this using the gyro function of the controller, mind you, and if you've used that feature, you'd know that it's excellent, really responsive, and a really fun way to begin each level. When you're there, the controller is constantly abuzz in ways that reflect the environments you're moving through or the things that you're doing. You'll still feel that special tinkle when Astro Bot walks across metal surfaces, or that slushy drag when you're moving across sand. When you're asked to grab onto things using the triggers, you can feel the adaptive resistance kick in to deliver that sensation of strain. There's also just silly, fun things you can do, like when you find an Astro Bot hidden in a level, they'll kind of get tossed into a secret compartment underneath the touchpad, like the on-screen presentation of the controller or whatever, and they kind of stand there hanging out with other Astro Bots as you collect them until you choose to close the touchpad lid. But if you want to leave it open, you can use the gyro to kind of like flip them up and toss them about just for no reason at all. There's no point in doing it, but it feels great and it really is just fun. It genuinely is. I know I've gone on a lot about the controller here, but I really do believe that this is an actual thing that elevates the game. Would it still be fun without these controller gimmicks? Absolutely, no doubt at all. But the fact that they do exist and can sort of only really exist on the PS5 DualSense, that's a thing. It adds to the uniqueness of this experience. And certainly anyone who's played Astro's Playroom will attest to the fact that calling the controller stuff a gimmick is kind of doing it dirty, because the kinesthetic feedback that this controller provides in a game like this feels integral to the experience. But if you don't care about any of that stuff, then worry not, because even if you were playing this on the Resident Evil 4 GameCube chainsaw controller, this would still be a great video game. It looks gorgeous to the point where it makes me sad how rare platformers are on current gen consoles. Like, what else have we got from Sony in this space this generation? Ratchet and Clank, which, mind you, of course, looks absolutely incredible as well. Sony is so leveraged into Sony-style cinematic games focused on realism that there's very little left in the tank for all ages style experiences like this that can sport this sort of color and visual flourish. That's why it feels very special to get something like this, something so brimming with color and charm. It also runs magnificently, mind you, 60 FPS, silky smooth the entire time, just absolutely flawless. I do imagine that it would be fairly easy for the PS5 to achieve these sorts of results though, given the linear nature of these levels. So this is definitely not an open world game, and the levels do not feel remotely open world. They are very, very linear, and that feels fantastic. There's no dead space in Astro Bot. Every single second is a thing. Every square inch of it is some engaging combat puzzle or traversal challenge. It never lets up, not for a single moment. As for each of those elements, they're always surprisingly inventive. The combat stuff does involve a lot of jumping on enemies, sure, but later on I did a boss battle which was great. It was against this giant octopus thing, and I had these boxing gloves on, so I had to hit the projectiles he sent at me and stun his tentacles when he would wind up for a big attack. We've all fought bosses like this in games like this before, but it was still clever, and the difficulty tuning was just right, such that adults won't be remotely challenged by this, but kids will no doubt find it right at their level. When it comes to the traversal stuff, that's far more central than the combat. Most sections of each level are focused on you jumping over or up to stuff, or carefully navigating a dangerous section where falling off would send you back to the checkpoint. Again, very simple for adults, but I did unlock some hard mode challenge stages at the end of my playthrough, and these were no joke. Much more advanced traversal challenges where split-second timing really mattered, and where you were expected to nail these big, long, complex runs where one mistake would send you back to the start. Sadly, I don't have any footage of those levels, but they were a good time. And finally, puzzle solving is what gives each level its secret sauce. In most levels, you'll get some sort of unique power-up that gives you some new capabilities. Here in this level, it's the ability to inflate yourself a la Kirby. Here it's this big-ass magnet, and here it's this bulldog booster pack thing. Much like Mario's caps in Odyssey, these power-ups give you all new tools to move and fight, and the puzzle solving is around getting to grips with these new tools and figuring out how you can use them to progress. The last thing I'll touch on is that all of the Astro Bots you rescue are based on Sony characters, and the game is clearly using Sony's IP as a launchpad for not only Easter eggs, but also core gameplay elements. I did see a God of War themed stage on the star map. I couldn't access it, but I could see it, and that was awesome. Will there be a Bloodborne stage? God, I hope so, and that will unironically be the only way we can experience Bloodborne at 60 FPS on PlayStation hardware. So yeah, visually, game design, level design, the use of hardware, the PlayStation IP, all of it just absolutely rules. I loved it so much. Sony says this will be about 4 times the size of Astro's Playroom, so this should come in at around about 10 hours, maybe 12 for completionists. A small game aimed at kids, but one that I suspect will hold just as much appeal for adults for a variety of reasons. I felt rather different when I walked away from my time with LEGO Horizons Adventures. I played 45 minutes of that too, and while it was by no means bad, it left far less of an impression. It's an interesting comparison to draw, because these are both games targeting children and using Sony's IP as a playful staging ground for shenanigans, but where Astro Bot seems relentlessly dedicated to brilliant and surprising game and level design, LEGO Horizon feels like much more of an IP play, a more straightforward offering that's betting on visuals, simple controls, co-op play, and visual customization to get it over the line. I suspect that this will be fine, absolutely, but in my time with it, I couldn't find the things that really made me want to run out and play a bunch more of it, and it continues to be very weird that this game exists, because given Sony's extensive library of iconic IP, it's very odd that they chose Horizon as the franchise to get the LEGO treatment. So first of all, I will say that Sony did not provide any B-roll for this one. It's literally just the trailer. I don't know why they did that. To be honest with you, it's a bit of a weird call, but anyway, that's what we've got to work with. So if you have missed the announcement for this one, I don't blame you. Sony very rarely announces first-party games anyway, but their own webinars. And given we just had a Sony State of Play 2 weeks ago, we shouldn't have seen this one coming. But we kind of did see it coming though, since word of this one had leaked a few weeks prior, and with it absent from the State of Play, a reveal at Jeff Keighley's annual Trailerama was the next most likely bet. Sure enough, there it was, a LEGO game based on Guerrilla's Horizon franchise. It was a very flashy 2-minute long reveal that included both cinematics and gameplay. It revealed a holiday release of 2024, but more interestingly, it revealed that this one is headed to not only the PS5, but also the PC and the Switch on day one. So that is very weird. Sony have said on many occasions that they want their new release single-player titles to be on PS5 first, and then later come to PC. No mention of Switch at all, yet here we have a brand new first-party single-player Sony game arriving day one on not only the PC, but also on the Switch. This is not in the playbook. To be fair though, it does make a lot of sense. Just as Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment were unlikely to convert people to the Xbox ecosystem, a LEGO Horizon game is unlikely to get people rushing out to buy a PS5. This could hardly be called a tentpole offering for Sony, and so shipping it on other platforms day one is unlikely to gain or lose them some market share. But it will gain them some big dollars because there are a lot of PCs out there, though to be fair, this is hardly the target market for this sort of game, but there are a lot of Nintendo Switch consoles out there right now. And when I say a lot, I mean 150 million of them, 3 times the number of PS5s out in the market currently. The Switch is a big, juicy platform with plenty of kids in the mix. For a game like this, you can certainly see why Sony made the call that they did. Because yeah, this is a kids game, and you'd think that would go without saying given that this is a LEGO game, but many of the LEGO games are just fantastic video games that I would argue are just as enjoyable for adults. I mean, take the most recent LEGO Star Wars game, that was top to bottom incredible. The scale of that, the writing, the visuals, the scenario design, the depth of the mechanics with all the playable archetypes you could switch between on the fly, that was a remarkable game, it really was, and a few of the previous LEGO games we've seen over the years have hit similarly high bars for very different reasons. If LEGO Horizon Adventures is destined to hit that same high bar, I wasn't seeing too much evidence of that in my time with it. I think this is destined to be a perfectly fine, fun LEGO game that you play with your kid, or your kid plays with their little sister or whatever, but I'm just not really feeling this one, and I think that feeling the LEGO games is kind of the whole point. These are, generally speaking, plays to nostalgia or popular licenses with a healthy dosage of meta commentary or comedy thrown in there for good measure. LEGO games were delivering the IP mishmashing and member berries well before the likes of Fortnite or Multiverses were, because LEGO understood how fun it was to take well-established characters that everyone loves and make them silly, and then combine that silly character with 24 other silly characters and put them in silly scenarios. But the starting point for all that is a set of characters that you really know and really care about, and for me, this is the missing foundation that makes LEGO Horizon Adventures feel like a very odd proposition. Because generally speaking, Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West do not have good, memorable characters, and I say that as someone who really likes those games. I like those games way more than most other people do, and yet I will readily admit that when it comes to the characterization of the cast, it plays a distant second fiddle to the beauty of the world, the spectacle of the combat, and the range of activities on offer. Like Aloy, for example. Take a step back. If you were to imagine a LEGO version of Aloy, what would that look like? The answer is kind of no answer, because Aloy doesn't have character traits that easily convert into caricature form, and like neither does anybody else in the game's cast, or generally speaking. That really makes itself felt while you're playing this. It is Ashley Birch voicing Aloy, just as it is the original cast for the rest of the LEGO characters here, but here Aloy just sounds like a chirpy, quirky person? There's no elements of the writing that send up Aloy's character because there's nothing to send up. As such, LEGO Aloy here feels like an entirely new character that you're just meeting for the first time, and the same goes for her sidekick Val, who was also present in this demo. Luckily, the world of Horizon is a little easier to make fun of because robot dinosaurs. There's a lot of fun you can have with that. I met a few of them during my playtime, and each of them was not only visually spectacular, but also playfully animated, a lot more jumpy and cartoonish in their movements, replacing the ferocity that defined them in the main main game with an almost lovable charm here. The world itself is perhaps the most striking feature of LEGO Horizon Adventures. Other LEGO games have LEGO characters running around in normal, non-LEGO environments, with the odd LEGO structure here or there to denote that that is something you can interact with. LEGO Horizon Adventures, though, is built from the ground up out of LEGO, and it looks fantastic for it. More so than any LEGO game that's come before it, this one looks incredibly authentic, and it's a treat to see how the artists have been able to so convincingly rebuild the Horizon world using LEGO bricks. The fact that this world is built out of bricks opens up the doors for environmental destruction like never before. You can't hack away at things like a voxel game or whatever, but large dinosaurs or explosions will send bricks scattering away, which is always fun to see. Similarly, if you manage to set grass or dinosaurs on fire, you will see the clear plastic LEGO flames jittering about to denote a raging inferno. It is adorable. As for combat, it's a pretty simple affair, which is what you'd expect from a game like this, but it does have some unexpected surprises. It's based around ranged combat where holding down the button will bring up a targeting arrow and holding it down for longer will charge your shot. You can jump and dodge enemy attacks. You can actually stay in the long LEGO grass to stealth, setting up for sneak attacks, and firing your arrow through a flame will ignite it, allowing you to then ignite whenever it hits. The biggest focus of combat, though, is your focus. That is the little thing on Aloy's ear. You use it to ping the environment, and this highlights parts of the enemy robot dinosaurs, allowing you to precisely target them for big damage. It's very much like the main game, albeit much less flashy and less mechanically demanding, because this is, after all, meant for kids. So the playing of it is very much what you'd expect, but no more than that, really, at least not yet. What was so impressive about the most recent LEGO Star Wars game was how vast its combat sandbox was, given that you could use pretty much any character within the Star Wars universe, and they all fell into broad archetypes, which there were like a dozen of those, I think. It also had these really elaborate scenarios and sequences pulled straight from the movies and made playable. The game was very ambitious with how playable it wanted to be. LEGO Horizon Adventures may well be that ambitious as well. It may open up considerably later on, but for now, it's a pretty straightforward affair focused on simple combat and traversal. Outside of that, there's a huge focus on customization, as you might expect. The menu showcases dozens and dozens of costumes you can apply to Aloy and her buddies, most of them pulled from the Horizon games, but plenty of them also pulled from other LEGO properties. There was also some base building stuff going on. You'd collect studs out in the field, bring them back to base, and then use them to build new structures, one of which was a wardrobe. I could then pick up nearby wandering villagers, hurl them into said wardrobe, and when the door slammed, I was able to then change their outfits, allowing me to determine the attire of denizens wandering the streets. It was nice. So look, brass tacks time, what do I think it is? Well, as I said earlier, and in the title of this video, LEGO Horizon Adventures is shaping up to be perfectly fine. I don't have much to complain about here. It looks nice, it's simple, but it plays well. It's clearly having a laugh without being annoying about it. There's some unlockable stuff that will stretch out the intended 8-hour runtime a little. That runtime is confirmed by the developers themselves, by the way. So yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes. This is meant for kids, and I can see kids having a good time with this, absolutely. But I do wonder how much of a market there is for this. Like, are parents really keen to introduce their children to Horizon so they can pass on their love of the franchise to the next generation? No, Horizon does not evoke that sort of love. Are the writers champing at the bit for the chance to playfully skewer a lovable cast of characters? No, Horizon's characters do not elicit that sort of affection. Are fans of the LEGO games likely to be wowed by the advancements that this one is delivering? Maybe in the fact that the world is all built out of LEGO, which is great. But beyond that, this does seem far more straightforward than the LEGO Star Wars game that really raised our expectations of what this type of game is capable of. It really does beg the question, when you've got God of War, or Bloodborne, or Uncharted, or The Last of Us, or whatever, why are you making a LEGO game based on Horizon? Many have guessed it's because LEGO won't partner with franchises that are M-rated or above, and Horizon is Sony's only major IP rated PG that it's still banking on and making big bucks from. So like the kid who gets picked last in gym class, Aloy got the call. There's also the toy angle. I mean, that LEGO tall neck thing they put out a while ago was so cool that even I bought one, and I don't buy LEGO stuff. I can see the LEGO sets for this thing being a whole moneymaker in and of themselves, so that definitely makes sense. But do I believe that Sony would have made this if they could have made LEGO God of War instead? No, absolutely not. A LEGO God of War game would be absolutely sick, and we'd all be lining up day one to get that. LEGO Horizon Adventures is, in contrast, not as hype-inducing, and the playing of it is unlikely to generate much more excitement, at least on the part of adults. Kids, I have no doubt they'll have a good time with it, and given how hard it is to find a well-made co-op kids game, this may be just the ticket for parents looking for a Christmas stocking filler to go along with a brand new PS5. 15-year-old Jimmy wants to play God of War and Call of Duty, but his little 8-year-old brother Timmy needs something to play too. This could be it, but we won't know for sure until we play the full game when it arrives closer to the holidays this year. Be sure to check back for the full review then. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Have you ever dreamed of starting your own business? Doesn't have to be the next Amazon, it could just be you making stuff you like to make, selling it online for a neat profit. Maybe you want to provide a service, giving your time and expertise to others. Whatever it is you might want to do, you're probably going to need a website, and there's no better place to build a website than Squarespace. Squarespace provide intuitive end-to-end tools allowing you to make a professional-looking website in minutes. It starts with their templates. Just choose one that interests you, and you can immediately start customizing it to your taste. After that, you can start utilizing all of Squarespace's e-commerce functionality. It has everything essential to transacting business online: ordering and inventory management, support for postage and tracking, accounting support to ensure you're tracking your tax liabilities, plus it supports a huge range of back-end payment options like Stripe, PayPal, and Afterpay. Back in the day, you had to pay companies tens of thousands of dollars to set this stuff up for you, and money every single month to manage it. Now you can do this stuff yourself for a fraction of the cost, making it easier than ever before for you to turn that business idea of yours into a reality. If you're interested and you want to check it out, then visit Squarespace to start building your website through their free trial. And if you want to get serious, use offer code SKILLUP for 10% off your purchase of a domain name. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.